The Aristocrat and the Ruffian. It was a cold and dreary night in London, and Ryan Derling was sitting outside the tavern, smoking his pipe and drinking his rum. He was a chubby, bearded man with a ragged coat and a battered hat. He had a hate for aristocrats, who he blamed for all the troubles of the poor. He had seen enough of their cruelty and arrogance, and he wished he could teach them a lesson. As he was puffing away, he saw a fancy horse-drawn carriage coming down the street. It was painted black, with gold trimmings and curtains. It had a coat of arms on the door and a driver in a livery. Ryan knew it belonged to David Douglas, one of the richest and most powerful men in the city. He was a lord, a banker, and a politician. He was also a notorious snob, who looked down on everyone below his rank. Ryan felt a surge of anger as he watched the carriage approach. He spat on the ground and muttered to himself, "Look at him, the bloody bastard, thinking he's better than us. He don't care about no one but himself. He's got more money than he knows what to do with, and he still wants more. He's robbing us blind, he is. He should be hanged, drawn and quartered. That's what he should." As the carriage passed by the tavern, Ryan saw David Douglas sitting inside. He was a tall and thin man with a pale face and a pointed nose. He had a wig of curly hair and a hat with a feather. He wore a velvet coat, a silk shirt, and a lace cravat. He had a cane in one hand and a snuff-box in the other. He looked bored and disdainful, as if he was above everything and everyone. Ryan felt a surge of hatred as he met his eyes. He glared at him and shouted, "Oi, you there, you bloody aristocrat! Why don't you get off your high-horse and come down here? I'll show you what it's like to be one of us. I'll give you a taste of your own medicine, I will." David Douglas heard the insult and turned his head. He saw Ryan Derling sitting outside the tavern, smoking his pipe and drinking his rum. He recognized him as one of the ruffians who frequented the place. He felt a surge of contempt as he looked at him. He sneered at him and replied, "Who are you to address me in such a manner? You are nothing but a filthy beggar, a lowly worm, a worthless cur. You have no right to speak to me, let alone challenge me. You should be grateful that I do not have you whipped for your insolence." He then took out an apple from his snuff-box and bit into it. He chewed it for a moment, then spat out the half-eaten fruit at Ryan's face. "Here is something for you to eat, you miserable wretch. It is more than you deserve." Ryan felt the apple hit his cheek and felt the juice run down his beard. He felt a surge of rage as he tasted the bitterness. He threw his pipe on the ground and jumped up from his seat. "You bloody bastard! You rotten scoundrel! You dirty dog! How dare you do that to me? I'll make you pay for this, I swear." He ran towards the carriage and grabbed the door handle. He tried to pull it open, but it was locked. He banged on the window and shouted, "Come out, you coward! Come out and face me like a man! I'll teach you a lesson you won't forget." David Douglas saw Ryan Derling running towards his carriage and grabbed the door handle. He felt a surge of fear as he heard him banging on the window. He quickly pulled up the curtains and shouted, "Driver! Driver! Drive faster! Get me out of here!" He then took out a pistol from his coat pocket and pointed it at the window. He cocked the hammer and waited. The driver heard David Douglas shouting and whipped the horses. The carriage started to move faster, but not fast enough. Ryan Derling was still holding on to the door handle and trying to break the window. "Let go of me, you brute! Let go of me or I'll shoot!" David Douglas pulled the trigger and fired. The bullet shattered the glass and hit Ryan Derling in the chest. He felt a surge of pain as he fell to the ground. He let go of the door handle and rolled over. He looked at his wound and saw blood gushing out. He knew he was dying. He looked up at the sky and saw the stars. He thought of his life and how miserable it had been. He thought of his family and how he had lost them all. He thought of his friends and how they had betrayed him. He thought of his enemies and how they had oppressed him. He then looked at the carriage and saw David Douglas looking back at him. He felt a surge of hatred as he met his eyes. He cursed him with his last breath. You. He then closed his eyes and died. David Douglas saw Ryan Derling falling to the ground and felt a surge of relief as he heard him cursing him. He smiled wickedly and said, "That's what you get for messing with me, you filthy beggar. You got what you deserved." He then put away his pistol and opened the curtains. He looked at the street and saw people running towards the scene. He saw their faces and felt a surge of pride as he recognized them. They were his friends, his allies, his supporters. They were the ones who admired him, who respected him, who feared him. They were the ones who helped him rise to power, who helped him rule the city. He waved at them and said, "Hello there, my good people. Do not worry about this little incident. It was nothing but a minor disturbance. A ruffian tried to attack me, but I defended myself. He is dead now, and I'm safe." The people heard David Douglas speaking and felt a surge of awe as they saw him waving at them. They cheered for him and said, "Hurrah for Lord Douglas! Hurrah for our leader! Hurrah for our hero!" They then surrounded his carriage and escorted him away from the scene. They praised him for his courage, his wisdom, his generosity. They thanked him for his service, his guidance, his protection. They did not notice Ryan Derling lying on the ground, bleeding to death. They did not care about him. He was nothing to them. He was nothing to anyone. The end.